I'm Dan Goldstein with Clean Skies News, and today I'm talking with Christopher Field, who's the director of the Carnegie Institution's Department of Global Ecology. Christopher, thanks for joining us. Also want to mention you are the director too, or the co-chair of the IPCC's Working Group too, correct?
That's correct.
Let's start with this. The IPCC obviously has come under quite a bit of fire for the Himalayan mistake. How does the IPCC fix it, and how do you get your credibility back?
The IPCC is the most ambitious, thorough, and successful science assessment of any topic that has ever been. It is a unique partnership between the scientific community and the world's governments to provide credible information on a wide range of topics. The IPCC runs entirely on volunteer input from the world's leading scientists, and the actual enterprise is massive, with thousands of scientists serving as authors, many more serving as reviewers, and processing tens of thousands of review comments. In an enterprise of that scale, our goal is that there be absolutely no errors. So far, we have not been able to meet that goal in a comprehensive way, and we're working really hard to come up with a way to tighten all of the screws on all of the procedures to make sure that in future assessments we do as good a job as possible and really attain the standard of being completely error-free. The issue of reestablishing a credibility is a very important one, and I think that the most important thing that we can do is to demonstrate how, with every component of the reports, that we're completely open about how they came to be, we're transparent about access that everyone has to the underlying information, and I think that where a error comes up, we need to continue to be open and forthright about admitting it.
One of the things your colleague Joe Rome said to me last week was that the IPCC might want to consider, instead of doing these 5-year reports as they were, the next one out is obviously out in 2014, shorter reports more frequently on single topics. What is your view on that?
You know, there are lots of good ideas out there about how the IPCC can provide the information that's most useful for stakeholders in an environment that's increasingly fast-moving and dynamic. Personally, I do hope we can come up with ways to provide information that's more timely and more relevant to the rapid changing pace of information and needs for science information on climate change.
One of the things that came out of this, the latest concern with the IPCC's 2007 report, was the use of gray literature. Does there need to be more peer review of this sort of literature, or more peer review in general of what goes into the final draft of the next report?
The job of the IPCC is to assess the scientific information on climate change and its impacts. A lot of that information is in what we call peer review literature. It's the regular scientific journals, and the procedures require that we utilize that to the maximum extent possible, and that's what we do. But quite a lot of the information is not in this kind of literature. It's in things like government reports, reports from non-governmental organizations or private companies, and sometimes that information is the most appropriate, most well-vetted information available on a given topic. In the IPCC procedures, the guidance on using that information is that IPCC authors who use this non-peer-reviewed literature need to exercise an extra increment of quality control in making sure that the information in this non-peer-reviewed literature is valid. I think that that's a legitimate way to go, but I think that it needs to be strengthened with extra vigilance on the parts of the authors, the reviewers, and the review editors. And I also think that it's incumbent on the scientific community to continue to produce in the peer-reviewed literature the information that's most important for assembling forthcoming assessments.
Last question. The IPCC obviously is going to be working on its 5th assessment report due out in 2014. Can you give us a preview of what that might look like and what you expect to see, given what you've learned in the 2007 report?
Work on the next assessment cycle is already well underway. A large fraction of the world's scientists are beginning to assemble the information, and I'm looking forward to an assessment process that is diligent, that has super high standards of integrity, and that processes the science information on climate in a way that's open, transparent, credible, and verifiable. I am looking forward to a next assessment report that reaches a new standard of authoritativeness and a new standard of absolutely making sure that every component of it has been tested, retested, and verified. I also expect to see a report that can really support smart stakeholder actions, decisions on how we deal with a future where climate change is an important and challenging issue.
All right. Thanks very much for joining us. I've been talking with Christopher Field, who is the director of the Carnegie Institution's Department of Global Ecology, and he is also the co-chairman of the working group for the IPCC. I'm Dan Goldstein. Thanks for joining us on Clean Skies News.